you have a pretty strong guarantee, warranty, whatever it is that you want to call it, for a racing engine. That's unheard of.
The only guy that I've ever seen that has a non-conditional 1-year warranty on a race engine. You buy a brand new motor from me, there's a 1-year non-conditional warranty on it. If you crash it into the wall and it blazes into fire, you send the motor back to me and I will fix it.
You actually become part of a team's race effort, right? I mean, you're not just handing them back an engine with a dyno sheet.
We are in this to win races. That's what we want to do. And we become part of the program. We do this stuff. This stuff doesn't leave here unless it's right. That's one of the reasons I can warranty this stuff. It's right when it leaves here. Once we get this tuned, we have it all ADR'd. We have it all mapped out. You have a Computech. You can take the tune-up that we put on this thing, and you will always be able to plug those numbers in. And I teach everybody. There's a lot of sprint car teams out there that never even touch their pills. They'll run one set of pills all year long. They're scared to death to touch them. My guys will change their jets, their pills, and their motors 3 times a night.
And that's the ADR.
Doing the right thing.
Air density.
Air density ratio.
Ratio, right.
So we know what ADR we dynoed it at. So we have that tuned up. Whatever area you're at, whatever track you're at, anywhere across the country. We send motors all across the country. And the tune-up that we put on here, they get to keep that tune-up forever. And a motor that's tuned right has way less problems. It's not going to melt itself down. So we eliminate so many of the reasons that puts racers on the sidelines a year. Every time you hurt a motor, you're out 4 weeks waiting for your motor to come back. You know, unless you're one of the teams that's got multiple motors and stuff, but even still, you can venture on yourself out of motors, you're having a bad string and a lot.
Well, especially if you're putting bad tune-ups in them because you don't understand what it needs to be happy.
We like doing everything the way it is on the car as much as we can. We run the air filters, we run the mufflers it's supposed to. We run them through those cans. We spend a lot of time. You see a lot of exhaust stuff up here. We build a lot of exhaust here for different stuff we do because we feel so important about that. Most guys will run off in a 4-inch pipe off their collector. And the header coming out of there into a 4-inch pipe, that is affecting the way the exhaust comes out. It's not the way it exits on a race car. Ours, the muffler's actually inside here. It has a dead air space behind it. So when it comes out, it's not the air coming out of the muffler is not affected by the dead air space or a cone, a funnel they would put on there, or a 4-inch collector going out to a 6-inch pipe. We have a 12-inch pipe there, and we have done tests back-to-back where we've dynoed like this. We pull off my pipes out there and do a backup pull, and there's no difference. So,
no difference.
So we are not affecting with that, but we do build a lot of exhaust zipper. We spend a lot of time. We run the pyrometers in there. You can see our pyrometers are in a way that they're not in the way of doing lash. Most dyno shops you see, they all put them in up here, and you have to japple with them when you're doing the lash and stuff, and they're always in the way. I mean, a sprint car motor has a lot of plumbing on it, and you can see this motor here, we have all the plumbing out of the way. It's all out of the way, so it's not up here in our way. We even plumb the water a little different than everybody else does. We actually run 3 lines off. We have 4 lines going to the radiator. And so we run 3 lines off the left-hand side here because centrifugal force makes the water go through the right-hand side. We run 1 line off the right side that ties into the 3 ports on the right side. But over here we take off 3 separate lines to come over here.
And this is all things that you've learned
We've seen inside motors when we took them apart that there's always more heat problems in the valves and the springs and the cylinder walls and the rings, everything on this side of the motor. So we're like, well, we're always looking for, when you see something that's not right, how are we going to fix that? So we started working on how to fix that. And so that was one of the plumbing things that we did that, and now our motors, when we take them back apart, both sides look very similar to each side. You don't see a heat difference from side to side on even the rocker arms. We were seeing the problems on the rocker arm, on the rollers on the rocker arms. Would start having color on this side over here, and they wouldn't have color on that side over there.
And that's indicative of heat buildup in the engine. That's putting you at a place of potential failure.
I mean, if it's 100 degrees more hot over here, just inside here,
oil.
The valve's 100 degrees. The oil might be 25 degrees more, but now the oil can't lubricate that stuff because it's hotter than it is on the side. It's not draining back right. Nothing's happening right over here. And I mean, these sprint cars pull a lot of G-force in the corners, and there's a lot of races they'll go through where they don't lift. Now, they may not lift for 25 laps, so the motor doesn't ever get a chance to breathe. Doesn't ever get a chance to get off the throttle and get a gulp of fuel and everything else.
And fuel would help cool it down, especially with methanol. You know, the fuel is a cooling agent.
Even the dry sump systems. It's nice to be able to breathe the dry sump system, be off the throttle for a little bit, let pressures
stabilize, equalize.
Yeah. But when you're on the wood, 25 laps and you're not lifting, any problem you have becomes a vicious cycle problem. It never gets a break. So a little bit of problem on lap 1 is a bigger problem on lap 2, it's a bigger problem on lap 3, it's a more bigger problem on lap 4, and it's a way worse problem on 5, and on and on and on until finally.
Well, and one problem leads to another, right? I mean, that's a kind of a cliche, but certainly is true when you're dealing with a piece of machinery like this.
Absolutely. And that's why the more things that are right, that's how we can warranty our stuff. Most everything that happens to a motor is 1, 2, 3 things wrong. There's not just one thing wrong. Well, if you eliminate the other 2 things, you can have one thing wrong, and your margin for error is now bigger. Now you don't hurt stuff.
Anything else that you want to, before we sign off on this part of the segment, anything else that you want to tell us about this?
Just something that we do here with the valve covers. These are actually internal oiled valve covers. I think we'll talk a little more about that later and stuff. One of the nice things about that is how much longer spring life we've had. So we've increased the spring life from about 5 or 6 races on these things to our freshman intervals, about 30, 35. Most other shops.
Could you say that again?
To 30, 35 show racing intervals. So before we freshen this motor up, it'll do 30, 35 races, which most guys, it's almost 2 seasons. If the guy's running 20 races a season, a guy will get 2 years out of one of our motors for freshening it up. Most other shops, we've seen them about 12 or 15 is what they're recommending. And by that time, they've already had 3 sets of valve springs put on. Ours, at the end of that, valve springs are still actually checked. They're not down 10%, they're still there.
But you would replace them at that?
Because they got 30, 35 races on them, but they're actually still good springs. But yeah, and when you have 5 or so sets that you would put on there in 30 shows, the chances of coming across a bad spring, the chances of running a valve into a piston while you're changing the spring, dropping a keeper down the motor to have to chase it, maybe it went on the floor or whatever, all those problems you have, the more you have to deal with that, the more chances there are of something going bad.
Well, that's, if you happen to do that at your shop as a racer, that's one thing. But like if you're out on the road and you're trying to do this valve spring change, like in your trailer or in the hotel parking lot or something like that, as you're going between venues, again, your odds of something going wrong go way up.
We've always found that Murphy's Law, Murphy is never very far away.
Thanks so much, Steve.